Hello friends. Welcome to my channel. Today I will make a cake Prague with an improved recipe. This delicious chocolate with delicate cream and frosting will win you over from the first bite. Stay tuned with me to learn all the secrets of making it. And as always, we'll start with the cookie. In this video, I'm going to make cake with a diameter of 16 centimeters and a weight of the cake is 700 grams, but in the description of the video I'll write a recipe for a diameter of 18 centimeters and a weight of 1,400 grams. To prepare the cake you will need 2 eggs, 70 grams of sugar, a pinch of salt, 65 grams of flour, 4 grams of baking powder, 20 grams of cocoa, 40 grams of milk, 50 grams of vegetable oil. I pour hot milk over the cocoa, stir it in. So I kind of cook the cocoa powder, and it brings out the flavor and taste. Then I add vegetable oil, butter, and blend it with an immersion blender until it is smooth. I'm telling you, it's a little hard to do. The end result should be this smooth, homogeneous, thick, that is somewhat reminiscent of chocolate ganache. I set it aside for now. In the bowl, I beat the eggs and add the sugar and a pinch of salt to balance the flavor, and beat until very thick and fluffy as you would for a sponge cake. Add the flour with the baking powder and mix until homogeneous. In 2 steps, sift the dry ingredients with a spatula until the mixture is homogeneous from bottom to top. Once all the flour lumps have separated, sift in the second part of the dry ingredients and again until homogeneous. Add some of the dough to the previously prepared chocolate mixture and mix until homogeneous. Add the chocolate. The chocolate and butter mixture is quite fatty and will be easier to incorporate into the main cookie dough. Then I combine and mix it all together. At this point, you don't need to knead the dough for a long time. Just get the dough completely homogeneous so that the eggs don't lose their fluffiness and airiness due to the presence of fat. The end result should be a nice, fluffy chocolate biscuit dough. Let's move on to baking. I bake in 1 mold because I'm making a small cake, but if you're making a regular cake, you'll have to bake it in 2 molds with a diameter of 18 centimeters. If you only have 1 mold of the required size, put half of the batter in it and bake the other half of the batter at room temperature, waiting for it to rise. I bake in top-bottom mode without convection. If you're baking a small cake, you can bake it in 1 mold. If you're baking a regular cake, you'll need 2 molds with a diameter of 18 centimeters. If you only have 1 mold of the required size, just put half of the batter in it and bake the other half of the batter at room temperature. Wait for it to cool down, then insert a stick in the center. If it's dry and clean, the biscuit is ready. Let it cool a little bit in the mold, then take it out. Put it on a rack and let it cool down completely. Enjoy! Then, it's time to wrap it in cling film and let it rest for at least a few hours. This is how it turns out, a delicious, airy, spongy biscuit with a wonderful flavor. To make the cream, we need 200 grams of milk, 65 grams of sugar, 17 grams of cornstarch and 2 egg yolks, 250 grams of cream 33 to 35% fat content, 40 grams of dark chocolate 70% cocoa. In a thick-bottomed saucepan, I combine milk and sugar, add cornstarch and 2 egg yolks. Stir everything with a whisk until homogeneous. If desired, you can beat with an immersion blender and send the saucepan to the stove. Cook over medium heat with constant active stirring until thickened. When the cream has thickened, remove the saucepan from the heat. As a result, you should get this smooth, homogeneous custard. I put it in a bowl, cover it with cling film and put it in the refrigerator until it cools down completely. It is very convenient to prepare the cream in advance. I prepare it the night before. The second part of the cream is the chocolate ganache. I take hot heavy cream to it. I add dark chocolate, 70% cocoa content is mandatory, otherwise the cream will be liquid. If you use milk chocolate it needs 60 grams. I let it stand for a minute and then beat it with a mixer until it is homogeneous. In the classic version of the cake to the custard is added cocoa powder and butter. In my opinion, if instead of cocoa powder to use chocolate cream has a brighter, more pronounced chocolate flavor, and with the addition of cream instead of butter, cream is softer and not so heavy. We also cover it with foil and put it in the refrigerator until it cools down completely. When both bases are well chilled. Whip the ganache. In the refrigerator, you will see a little thickened. When you start to whip, it will become more liquid, no big deal. Keep whipping. The speed of the mixer is low because the ganache thickens very quickly. It is important not to overbeat it. It should end up like this. Then we take the pudding base out of the refrigerator. It is very thick, like a lump. I whip it to homogeneity. This is the state to break all the lumps. And now I combine both masses together, and no longer with a mixer so as not to overmix, but just with a spatula until homogeneity. The result is a very delicate chocolate cream. It has this consistency, not too thick, but not too liquid. It keeps its shape and is perfect for assembling the cake. Now let's prepare the soaking for the cake. We will need 40 grams of milk and 25 grams of rum. If you do not want to use alcohol in the recipe, instead of rum, take the same amount of milk and a tablespoon of apricot jam, also about 100 to 150 grams of apricot jam we will need to cover the cake. Mix the milk, rum and jam. To dissolve the jam better, the milk can be heated to a warm state. Mix everything to homogeneity and the impregnation for the cakes is ready. Let's go back to the sponge cake. He has had a rest. I cut off the sponge cake and cut it into 3 pieces. If you are making a big cake, you have 2 sponge cakes, you have to cut them into 2 pieces, you end up with 4 cakes. These are such amazing, delicate chocolate cakes. I think once you try them, you will want to make another chocolate cake. And the trimmings I cut into crumbs that will be used to decorate the finished cake. So covered all the excess removed and put the cake in the refrigerator for now. And now we come to the most interesting part, assembling the cake. It's not difficult at all. I put the sponge on the base with a little cream. Each sponge is impregnated quite generously, about 30 milliliters of impregnation goes on a cake. In the end, they should be quite well soaked. Very wet. Next, siphon off the cream. I use a pastry bag. For the convenience of siphoning cream, spread an even layer and do the same with the rest of the cakes. Look what you get, a delicate spongy sponge. It is just like a sponge absorbs all the impregnation. I put the third sponge cake upside down so that the top of the cake is as even as possible. I have a little cream left. I put it between the cakes where there are small holes and level everything with a palette. All the excess is removed. Then put the cake in the refrigerator for 6 to 8 hours to set. This is not necessary in principle, but so that the cake turns out as even and beautiful as possible. And send the cake in the refrigerator overnight to cool well, standing soaked. I remove the ring and the acetate foil and decorate it. Next, the top and sides must also cover a layer of apricot jam, will take about 100 to 150 grams, depending on the density of the jam, and first apricot jam, it harmonizes perfectly with chocolate cake, adds a special note of sourness in the flavor, and plus on the sides of the apricot jam will be well attached to the apricot jam crumbs, which in the future I will decorate the cake. So covered all the excess removed and put the cake in the refrigerator for now. Let's prepare a glaze to cover the cake. Here 40 grams of heavy hot cream, 40 grams of dark 70% chocolate, all combined, beat with an immersion blender, and in the end we get such a smooth, beautiful chocolate glaze to cover. Take the cake out of the refrigerator, carefully cover the top so that the icing is evenly distributed, the excess can be swept away with a palette, and the excess icing on the sides to remove. Then I took the cake for a few minutes in the refrigerator to glaze a little hardened, and the remaining icing from the carnet made a pattern on top. Decorate the sides of the cake with the prepared cookie crumbs, sprinkle the sides of the cake and a little on the edges. Here is such a cake, look how tender, juicy, and tasty it is. I think fans of chocolate desserts will be delighted with my variation of the recipe. Thank you for being with me, and I am sure you will make this delicious Prague cake. I hope your dessert turns out great. Subscribe to my channel, like and share this video with your friends. Click the bell to not miss my new delicious recipes. Until new sweet encounters and good luck in the kitchen, don't be afraid to experiment.